8th grade, the point of view and portrayal of characters influence plot development and theme. So you see how it changes from grade level to grade level as far as what's your piece of the pie. This is your piece, this is your piece, this is your piece. Okay, this is looking at category 3, which is your expository genres. This is what we have in 5th grade. The only thing added here is recognize how different organizational patterns are used to develop the main idea. The thing added in 7th grade is central argument, accurately summarizing the text and recognizing how the author organizes and presents ideas. And you'll see 8th grade, there's absolutely nothing added from 7th grade. This is looking at figure 19D. Figure 19, he's going to go. He's going somewhere. Figure 19D, you have figure 19D, figure 19E, and figure 19F. Figure 19D is your logical reasoning and you're drawing conclusions. E is your summarization and logical order, and F is your paired passages, your connections from paired passages. So really, if you look at figure 19D, there's no change. So where does the change come from? Again, your answer choices. How the students are to respond to what they just read. This is your, that was for similar different genres. Logical connections, this is figure 19F. I looked at logical. This is figure 19F because it has your different genres and your connections. This is figure 19D. You notice there's no difference in the 6th grade versus the 5th grade, the 7th grade, and 8th grade. But figure 19D is your draw conclusions and inferencing. Your figure 19E is your summarization and sequencing logical order, and your figure 19F is your connections. Okay, Kira, do you want to add something about how TEA came up with figure 19? Because that's been she was there during the process. It's been this figure 19, and also how it's going to be addressed in the new TEAs.
I was just about to pull the new ones up and start reading them again. I'm trying to figure out where they're putting everything back. So back in 2009 was science, and 2008, I believe, was reading when they were redoing big overhaul of TEAs. And they went through, do you know teacher committees are the ones that determine that? So they had the teacher committee saying this is important, this is important. And all of those were current ELA, reading, writing teachers. And for some reason, nobody in the room remembered theme, characterization, inferencing. They just assumed that it was built in somewhere. And when they got to the very end with the state board, it got brought up, well, we're skipping this whole big part. And instead of going back and putting it in kind of where it needed to be, someone said, well, let's just do a whole other string, like a whole other little strand, and stick it on the end and tie it to everything else and call it figure 19. So it wasn't an afterthought. It was almost like everyone assumed it was where it just naturally fit in where it should be. But they had to have it in writing. So they pretty much just tacked it on the end of every grade level and confused everybody. And so the big overhaul they're doing right now was to try to get figure 19 back where it belongs, like inferencing back in where you're setting plot and character, because it all goes together. You can't teach one without teaching the other. So now they're talking about they're splitting it into 7 strands, which I still don't understand all of the strand stuff. Like I've got to really sit down and pull it apart. Do you want me to give them the update right now? Okay. So what is today, Tuesday? Last Wednesday, the state board voted. So they finally voted on the first reading of the TEAs. This was supposed to be done last June. Like they were supposed to be adopted by April. We still haven't even gotten through first reading. And by law, they have to do first reading and then 6 to 8 weeks of public comment. So be looking for public comment time, and then they'll do another round of testimony. The earliest they can adopt these right now is the April state board meeting. not holding my breath for April. And by law too, they have to give companies like ours, McGraw-Hill, any textbook company that develops materials, 1 school year to develop materials. So this is 2016-2017 school year. So say they get it adopted before August. It could happen, stranger things have happened. That means that our companies would have 2017-2018 to develop, 2018-2019 for, you remember they come in and they review, they bring you lunch, make you review all the books? So that's 2018-2019, which means implementation at the earliest in training is 2019-2020. The earliest. But I've also been told by the new director for the state board that the state board keeps saying that the proclamation that gives you the money to buy materials, they're not even going to release your funds until 2019, which means if they release the funds there, your school can't put it in the budget until 2020 because your budget was already set from the previous
So
year.
we're really kind of purchase slow, like probably 2021.
She's thinking 2020 is when we get to purchase, if it plays out like it does. Now, state board is required to release an implementation schedule, which they still have not. The one that's on there says they were implementing them this April. They haven't even adopted yet. And with that implementation of this April, it was 3 years out before they are implemented. And then a whole full year, because you have to do field testing, but you gotta have it in the class for a year before we can field test it. So it's like 2020, spring of 2021 before a kid would ever see it on a test.
And do they follow that?
If they follow
possible
that,
schedule?
but that possible schedule was also based on the previous map rollout, and everyone complained it was too fast. They did not have time to get the training they needed. And your bigger school districts didn't. They couldn't get everyone through training and through the processes, and a lot of teachers were like, I don't even know what I'm supposed to be teaching because it's such a, math was such a drastic change. So the state board, the previous state board, there's a lot of new faces, so take that with, and this is a legislative session, so you never know what's gonna happen. But the previous state board said they wanted to give teachers, they were hearing the teachers said you're not giving us enough time. So they wanted to add almost a year in to roll out. So 2020, fall of 2020, I think is the earliest they can really, that's my personal opinion. But like I said, stranger things have happened. The earliest they can even say they're teaching these new ones in the classroom. And
Figure 19 will be integrated into it.
it's supposed to be. But they also weren't supposed to change any, like, they weren't supposed to add anything to science. It's been called a science streamline only. They were told you only take stuff out, and they just added 15 days to biology teaching. They added so much. When biology was already going over, yeah, so they're not supposed to add anything, but state board, but I've seen between first reading and final adoption, state board changed things that never should have been changed. So right now, they're supposed to be back in there.
Okay, when will they give us the categories, and when will it get into
Okay.
that form about what we just did?
Okay, so curriculum develops the standards, obviously, the TEKS. Curriculum and assessment are two completely different divisions at TEA. And as you can imagine, there's some people that work great together, and there's some people that just probably like in your school. There's some people who don't like you messing with their division. You are laughing, because you know what I'm talking about. I'm trying to say it nicely. Curriculum decides readiness supporting with a teacher committee. They don't do it like in a bubble. They bring in a teacher committee of current teachers, and they decide readiness supporting. But you see how long it's taken to develop standards? That's my worry, is how long. Typically, assessment gets it done because they want to get their stuff going. But getting it done in assessment is 9 to 10 month process minimum. So I don't see even, I see you knowing what TEKS you're supposed to be teaching, but not which ones are readiness and supporting and the percentages of a blueprint. Now, they don't want to overhaul blueprints so much that they have to reset standards either. I don't know how they're gonna do that with the way the new TEKS are working, without keeping the categories like they are. And in reading, there's 3 categories, right? Okay, yeah, that's right. So I don't see them changing categories much, so that because they don't wanna have to set standards again, because it is such a laborious process. kill your brain, but it's fun. If you think of questions today, and I don't know the answer, I'll get the answer for you.
More specific.
They're supposed to, because, this is middle school, right?
Yes.
So you get to teach reading and writing, right? Pretty much. You don't have to do math and science.
Oh, no, I guess she means that we get to focus just on.
Yeah, you don't have to do reading,
You don't
you don't have to do math and science.
No.
Okay, so elementary teachers would understand usually that the math and science teachers are very specific, and it is wonderful, because you know exactly how far you're supposed to go, and you don't really have to guess. Reading, we have to guess. Like,
Even when they're, like, the standard is, like, somewhat specific, you kind of still, like, wonder, well, how far do we go?
like, yeah, am I a 4-lane highway, am I a 1-lane highway? Like, where do I set them up for success further down the road? If I focus just on this, am I missing out on something they have to have? They're supposed to make that more specific so that it matches the reading, or matches the math, science, and social studies that are very specific.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Okay,
Look in your workshop book. I'm sorry, I have this, I added this to the middle school. I have it in the elementary, but I added it to the middle school, because it was so successful.